Okay, take two. This dang thing. So today's morning medicine is Bufo. Yesterday was Bryony, a very big medicine. Make sure this thing is, well, it cut out on me anyway, so it may cut out again, but Bryony was a big one. Bufo is the Brazilian uh, toad, which the skin, the glands put out this poison as a defense against, I would imagine, animals. So Shakespeare, who seems to have known everything, was absolutely correct in speaking of the toad as having sweltered venom, which is, venom coming from the skin. Sweltered is like, I don't know. Anyways, it's like sweating out of the skin. The poison is excreted by the glands in the skin of the back. And this is from alchemaic stuff. Alchemy was big back then. Uh, Quintessence of toads, figured largely in the therapy of Salmon's Doran Medicon. So this doctor, whatever he was, we used the materia medica. So his Medicon, which is the same thing, in 1583, where it is commended as a specific in the dropsy or edema or all these words. Uh, the retaining of fluids, so these people would retain fluids, and this toad poison was used. It wasn't used, I doubt if it was used homeopathically, but however they were using it, it was relieving them of, the retention of fluids. Homeopathic, which could end up being deadly, basically, and that retention of fluids a lot of times has to do with the heart. The heart's not pumping, like you've seen Trump's ankles. He was swelling down there, and the heart, they said the valves were not sending fluid back. Well, the heart's not working that good, and that's what the problem is. So then we retain fluids, which cause the heart to enlarge more, and then we end up with a major situation. Homeopathic provings, which is what these are, is all from the materia medica. We've done a proving on it, which means we've diluted the medicine, succussed it, or potentized it by pounding it and diluting it, and then we gave it to people, and they proved it. This is all the provings. This is what the symptoms they got. Provings and poisoning, so people that were poisoned by it, also we can get symptoms from them from that, have shown that this reputation is founded on fact. So what they were using back then, either in alchemy or whatever it was, what they were using back then in the natives, and that's why a lot of the natives were using things, and then we'd come in and say, oh yeah, it does work, and we'd prove it. The poisonings would prove it, and also the homeopathic provings would prove that, yeah, this works for that. The chief laurels of Bufo have been won in the treatment of epilepsy, great epileptic remedy. Bojanus, a homeopath, has cured many cases, and no medicine has served better in the treatment of this disease, which is epilepsy. There's other ones, but this one was a big one. A few people who have witnessed a characteristic epileptic seizure can have failed to notice the curiously toad-like aspect assumed by the subject. So, this is like the doctrine of signatures. People would have an epileptic effect, and they said they looked like a toad when they were in that state. The epileptic seizure and the status epilepsy give the clearest correspondence to the Bufo range of action. Again, epilepsy is often found among the effects of self-abuse, which is masturbation, in the young. And Bufo provokes the tendency to practice and even cause impotence. So to practice masturbation, and it causes impotence. Now, this is separate. The Indian women of Brazil are aware of this last property, the impotence, and administer the venom to their husbands in food or drink when they wish to free themselves from their marital attentions. So they're not having babies, which is what they want. The man's impotent, probably blaming the woman, and decided to poison their husband by putting this toad poison in their food and drink. Bufo causes the low grades of inflammatory action. So, inflammatory being, inflammation of the joints, all kinds of things like that. Okay. Fetid exaltations, which is smelly discharges from the either whether it's the sweat, the breath, the stools, whatever it is, and discharges, fetid exhalation, so exhaling, and discharges. So exhalation from the mouth, discharges from the body. Clark has removed the feeder, which is the smell, in hopeless cancer cases of cancer with this remedy. So these people have cancer, which is your flesh is rotting, basically, is being destroyed. And they would have this bad smell, and Clark, a homeopath, would give Bufo to remove this smell. Now, these are hopeless cases. Sometimes in cancer, especially when you get it too late, now cancer, you can turn it around by changing your diet, different things like that, and some homeopathic stuff, of course. But when it becomes hopeless, the only thing you can do is palliate it. And in one case I read in India, the lady had breast cancer and they did not cure it, but they gave her a lot of life back by doing homeopathic remedies. It's still suppurated, they said. It still had, she would have to change the bandages because it was still pussing, but they stopped the progression and they gave her a lot more life. I don't know what ended up happening to her, but she was happy and functioning for quite a while. L. Guthrie, another homeopath, tells it, maybe not a homeopath, but a doctor, tells a story of an Italian peasant apparently dying of dropsy. Now, like I said, that is fluid retention, and that's because the heart is enlarging, basically, and it's not pumping. Whose wife, weary of the interminable length of his illness, her husband had this illness, this dropsy, and she was tired of it, thought to hasten his end. She was trying to do a Kevorkian on him, end his life, end his suffering, by putting a toad into his wine. So he was drinking wine a lot, I guess, for the pains and different things. But she put the toad in there. The result was the man was completely cured. So this poison she wanted to poison him with, she dropped a toad in there, right? Now, she probably didn't handle it with her hands because she would have got poisoned, but she dropped a toad in there and this guy got cured from it. So that's, that dropsy. Now, that case there tells us, yeah, this is good for fluid retention, basically. And it's probably heart stuff from the fluid retention. EE case, this is a doctor, homeopath, whatever, has reported a cure with Bufo cineris of nosebleed daily for several weeks. So they kept having nosebleed with flushed face, heat and pain in the forehead. So they had all this heat and pain in the forehead, better by bleeding. So they would have this pain and flushed face, pain in the forehead, and that sounds like it could be belladonna. But when they bleed, the nose would bleed, they would feel better. The headache and that would go away. There was also easy perspiration in general. So they would sweat, face flushed, headache, apt to be offensive, especially on the feet. So the feet would smell bad. They would sweat a lot. Their face would be flushed. They'd have a headache. And when they got the nosebleed, it would be better. But Bufo took care of that whole situation. All right. Feeble mind, okay. Constitution, feeble minded children, premature senility. So, senility and children who have, and this is good for imbecility when people just don't seem to be, their body's growing as a child. They don't seem to be mentally growing. Bufo could help that. And when a person becomes prematurely senile, early in their older life, you would consider this. But basically, epilepsy symptoms is a big one. So, Bufo, toad poison, epileptic seizures, septic lymphangitis. So the lymphangitis, they have a, how do I explain this? Anyways, they have pain. Let me just pull this up so that I can. Let's do this. Septic lymphangitis. Let's see what they say about it. Come on.
Septic lymphangitis is a serious bacterial infection that spreads from lymphatic vessels to the bloodstream, causing sepsis. It's a medical emergency, starting with red streaks, fever, chills, and fatigue, requiring immediate antibiotic treatment and sometimes hospitalization or surgery.
Okay, and that's what they got antibiotics for. Okay, and that's just an infection from a bug that and you'll have red lines running up and down the arms. So anytime that happens, septic lymphangitis, Bufos are considered medicine. Spasms in children. These are all threes: epilepsy, lymphangitis, and spasms in children after nursing. Boy, that was an easy way to explain that. You know, uh, thank God for Google, huh? Better cold bathing or feet in hot water. So these are the modalities. So whenever you have somebody and they're having a situation like lymphangitis, whatever, and they want to get in a cold bath, or they want their feet in hot water, what makes it feel better? What makes it feel worse? That's what modalities is. Bleeding, uh, better when bleeding, just like you've seen, the nosebleed would come, and that headache and all that flushed face and that sweating would go away. And better in cold air. Worse in warm room, uh, worse from sex excitement, sexual excitement. So, and worse from masturbation, uh, worse in injuries, and worse from least motion. So, as yesterday we seen, bryonia was the same thing, worse least motion. Bufo has that same symptomology. So, Bufo could be good for some of the things that bryonia was good for. Causations, wait a minute, no causations. Feeble-minded, that's a 3. So anybody that's not real bright, not able to function mentally. Desires solitude, those are both 3s. So they want to be alone, they're feeble-minded. Music is unbearable, and light is unbearable too. Propensity to bite, hawking, howling, I mean. So biting and howling, this patient's biting and howling, and that's in the imbecility. Impatient and imbecility. So this person's biting and howling and, all kinds of things going on. You would consider Bufo. And this could be in a lot of different situations going on with them. Feels cold balls running through the abdomen. So it feels like there's some, when you ask people what's going on in your abdomen and they mention something like that, you'd consider Bufo. Buboes in the groin. Buboes are gonorrheal, I'm pretty sure, infections. Convulsive swelling of the abdomen. So convulsions, and they have swelling of the abdomen. Jerks in the nape of the neck, lumbago in the back, lower back, worse from rising, least motion. So their lumbago, they can't get up. Oh man, it hurts to move, and it hurts to get up from a seat or a bed or whatever. Bone decay. So the bones are decaying. There's, necrosis, they call it. The bones are decaying on them. No chest, breast. Cancer of the breast, that's a 3. And there's a few medicines other than Bufo for cancer of the breast. Blood in nipples and in their milk. So the nipples bleed and they have blood in the milk when they're breastfeeding. Indurated glands. So the glands in the breast are hard, basically, is what that means. And their pain is worse at night in in the breast stuff. Music is intolerable. Ambrosia, I forget what medicine that is, but AMBR ambrosia, is it? Anyways, I'd have to look it up. See, some of these medicines like Bufo, you hardly ever use it. Bryonia, big time you use it. I've used it plenty of times. But some of these ones that I'm showing you are not so, even though they're great medicines for things, they're not as um, uh, widely used as like bryonia and arnica and all these ones. Purulent otorrhea from the ears. So they've got a discharge and they've got an infection in the ears. Ulcer with bleeding in the ears. Okay, the pupils are dilated. And now this can be in the epileptic attack or whatever. The eyes are sunken. Or, yeah, left eyelid is paralyzed and they roll up before the attack. So before the epileptic attack, the eyes will roll up in the head. Face is bathed in sweat during spasm. During the epileptic spasm, they will sweat a lot. Lips are black. That's interesting. Bloated, and that, if someone's poisoned, that same thing. Bloated and distorted. The face is. The face is very bloated and distorted. Okay, menses are early and copious. So the menses come on too early and they're very copious. Clots and bloody discharge on other times. So they'll have clots, bloody clots, and discharges in between the menses. Epilepsy at times of menses. So when the menses are coming on, this woman will have an epileptic seizures. Burning in ovaries and uterus. That would be, I can consider arsenicum, cantharis, a few of them with the burning ovaries and uterus. Offensive purulent leukorrhea, and so that leukorrhea is smells, fetid, very smelly, and it's purulent. Lots of leukorrhea coming out with clots and bloody discharge. Desires sweet drinks. A lady I just was dealing with, she did, what is that? Uh, Ustalago, which is corn smut. For her, she was having some bleeding situations. Seems to have cleared it up. Desires sweet drinks. So unlike the other, I forget which one I just did, they like sour drinks. This person that needs Bufo likes sweet drinks. Numbness in the brain before attack. So their brain just goes numb. They can't think, they can't function. And then they have the epileptic attack. Pressure like bands holding temples. So it feels like something squeezing the temples. Head is drawn to one side, left or right. I don't think it matters. Then it goes backwards before the attack. So their head is drawn to one side like a tight, squeezing of the head, and it goes to one side, then it goes backwards, then they have the epileptic attack. Heart feels too large, and this is what I was saying with the dropsy, the fluid retention. Your circulation is not working too good, and the heart begins to enlarge, but it feels too large. Palpitations with headache during menses. So when the lady has menses, her heart starts palpitating fast, and they have a headache. Constriction of the heart, rapid heartbeat in exophthalmic. So their eyes will be bulging out when they have this headache and they have this rapid heartbeat. And it can be during the menses, but also it can be anybody, a male, having this kind of the eyes bulging out and they're having this rapid heartbeat, and it can be before an attack. So of epilepsy. Kidney swelling, blue black about nails. No, there's no kidney. Sorry. Panaritium, which is inflamed fingers and toes, nails. So the toes and the fingernails are inflamed. Bruise pain, trembling, cramps, arthritic swelling. So all these things in the limbs. They feel like their limbs are bruised. They're trembling, they have cramps, and there's arthritic swelling. So around the joints will swell up. Now, apis has swelling of joints, and they're red and shiny. Belladonna has it. Rustox has some. Bryonia has some swelling around the joints. So there's a lot of medicines for this arthritic swelling. Feels like a peg being pushed into the joint. So there's a stabbing pain in the joints from this arthritic stuff. Swelling blue and black about nail. They call that whitlow. So they have swelling and they have a blue black sensation around it. Pain and streaks are up the arm, and that's part of the lymphangitis. They have a septic symptomology in the fingers, and the toes most likely, but in the pain runs up in the arms as streaks. But the lymphangitis will have a color with that. Sciatica in the hips. No liver, lungs, burning like fire. So that could be arsenicum, that could be a few different medicines, but there's a burning like fire. Yesterday's Bryonia, when they had that pain in their chest, they would want to put pressure on it. And when they cough, if someone's coughing with a Bryonia cough, whooping cough, whatever, you would consider, they would put their hands on because it hurt so much, felt like the chest was going to burst. Suffocative cough in asthma. So this person can have asthma, and there's a lot of asthma remedies, but it suffocates them. Male has buboes, which is a gonorrhea thing. That's a 3. Disposition, and they can have gonorrhea, or it can be, well, anyways, disposition to handle organ. So they want to always get their hands down there. Now, I don't know if you noticed it, but a lot of these new, I don't want to say rappers and that, but a lot of them have their hands down there. They might need some Bufo. Or with that symptom, handling their organ, hyoscyamus and zincum are ones along with Bufo for the handling of the organ. Disposition to masturbate, that's a 3, and which can bring on impotence. And they have their ejaculation is too quick, so they don't last long when they're having sex. Now they're selling these blue pills for all that, which, whatever. You could try a homeopathic remedy, could rectify all that. And they have spasms during sex, which, can be like the epileptic stuff. Bloody saliva in the mouth, fetid breath. So the breath stinks bad. They've got bloody saliva. Paralysis in the tongue, which causes the stuttering and the stammering. And the tongue is cracked. Yeah, and it's bluish black. That's a very interesting, bluish black is definitely not normal. If it's yellow, it's usually a kidney thing or something going on. Convulsions after tooth extraction. So they go to the dentist, have their tooth extracted. Now they're having the epileptic convulsions and stuff. So itching and burning in the skin. Lymphangitis, which has red streaks under the skin. So they have this lymphangitis. You'll see these red streaks in the skin. Loose they lose sensation, so it's the numbness in the skin. They don't have sensation. Blisters and carbuncles. So these are all skin stuff. Blisters are in the palms and the soles of the feet. Comatose after spasm. So when they have this epileptic fit, they go comatose and they just lay there. Worse, waking. All symptoms are worse when they wake up. They wake up and they just feel horrible. Vomiting after drinking. So they'll drink and they'll vomit. And what are they vomiting? Yellow fluid and vomit. And vomit's blood and bile. And that bile is yellow. So that's what the yellow fluids they're vomiting. There's the bile. And the bile is connected to the liver, which I don't know why they don't have that there. But they vomit blood and bile for some reason. Well, not for some reason, but because of the liver's not functioning. And why they don't have liver in here, I don't know. Do they have kidney? Bufo for kidney. Doesn't seem to have kidney either. But that yellow vomiting yellow stuff up is definitely kidney stuff. So, all right, Guernsey, which is a homeopath, commends it in panaritium, where the pain runs in streaks. So that's that, where is that? Skin, red streaks, lymphangitis, but the pain under the skin runs up in streaks. Anyways, panaritium. I forget what that is. And that's the thing. You don't have to know all this stuff. I don't think panaritium's gonna do anything. And just like, what did I look up just recently? Let's see. I looked up septic lymphangitis. Do you need to know that? Not really. Paranecium. Let's see what they say. Oh, medical. Don't want. Oh, it's a bug, is what it is. Let me see. Paranecium, a genus of a single-cell oval-shaped protist found in aquatic environment. Okay, let's say medical. Medical. When paranecium is not a direct cause of disease in humans, it is medically relevant as a model or organism in research and, okay, I don't know. Anyways, oh, sorry, I got the wrong term. Panaritium. Let's see what it says.
Panaritium, also called a whitlow,
Whitlow.
is a bacterial infection causing inflammation of the finger's soft tissues. Symptoms include pain, swelling.
So inflammation of the fingers is paranecium. Oh, I got that. Inflamed finger and toe. Sorry. That's why I say there's so many terms that you really don't need to know. Just pain in the fingers. And I already put that down, I already said that earlier. Commends it in panaritium, which is pain in the finger and toes, where the pain runs in streaks all the way up the arm. Also, when the fingers have been injured. Now, when you have your fingers injured, you think of hypericum, any nerve pain. The one time when my kid got hit with a baseball in the lip, I'm giving him arnica, thinking it's a hit to the head, it's an injury. Why is he still crying? You know what? That's nerves. So I gave him hypericum, and then he quit crying immediately, had him back on the baseball field before the game was over. Um, the fingers have been injured and look black. So when they turn black from the injury, you slam your finger in the door, you know how it turns black in that. With pains running in streaks up the arm. So Bufo is good for that. And you'd also, like I said, consider hypericum in the initial injury to stop the pain. According to Lippe, another homeopath, Bufo is especially indicated in epilepsy when the attack occurs during sleep at night. It can wake them or it cannot wake them. Is that what I said? Waking on? Oh, no. Anyways, the patient may or may not be, oh, here it is, awakened by the attack. So this person's having epileptic attacks at night, and they might wake or they might not. If not, when he does awaken, he will have violent headaches. So that's, it says waking, worse waking, all symptoms. So when they wake up, they got that headache. They had an epileptic attack. They don't know, they don't even know it happened. Um, and even if they do know it happened, they wake up from it, they have a headache from it. Epileptic symptoms are worse in warm room, but there is also great sensitiveness to cold air and wind. So they don't like a warm room, but they don't like cold air and wind. So, yeah, they it's almost like a mercury symptom where, mercury is the is our thermometers. And why does it work? Because anytime it gets cold, mercury expands. Anytime it gets warm, mercury contracts. So same thing here. They don't like warm rooms, but they don't like cold air. So they just need it to be um, average temperature. Marked periodicity, which is quatrain fevers. Now that quatrain fevers, they said it's every 72 hours. So every 3 days they get a fever, which is very interesting. You don't think of someone getting a fever every 3 days. If they have a fever, you think they get a cold, a chill, whatever. But this one, a quatrain fever, quartan, Quartan fever, is every 3 days, give or take hours. Hemorrhages, so any bleeding hemorrhages. I got some time. I like to do the comparison sometime because this is how you figure out homeopathic medicine. Bar C, which is barium, I forget, and aster, salamand, in epilepsy and softening of brain. Those three, along with Bufo in softening of brain, Cuba something. I don't know. I can't finish all the names of these medicines, but Cuba in convulsions from low grades of suppuration. Cubeb is Cubeb. Low grades of suppuration. Suppuration is they have convulsions from anyway suppurating. Pus is suppuration is pus coming out of injuries or anything like that, which would be septic. Arsenicum, cantharis, lachesis. Now I know those medicines, and tarantula. Yeah, we make a medicine out of tarantula. In epilepsy, aura starting in solar plexus. So it starts in the solar plexus. This epilepsy, you would consider those medicines. What were they? Arsenicum, cantharis, lachesis, and tarantula. Art V, calcarea carb, nux vomica, and silica also are starting in arm. So when it starts in the arm, it's there. When it starts in the solar plexus, it's the other ones. Lachesis and sulfur when it starts in the arm. In Korea, chorea is a some kind of infection. Patients cannot walk. That's when they lose function of their legs in that. Must run or jump. They can't walk, but they can run or jump. That's interesting. That's what, Anyways, calibrionia and nat myrrh, as if the heart is in water. Bovine. Bovine is if the heart is in water. They must run or jump. That is in calibrionia and nat myrrh. In Bufo would be considered. In masturbation and impotence, etc., any kind of sex stuff, hyoscyamus, mercury, and that's why I mentioned mercury when I was thinking about that, the warm and the cold, and sulfur when they need to masturbate a lot and they have impotence. In malignant pustules, which is cancerous pustules, anthrax. Yes, we do have a medicine out of anthrax. Antimonium carb and lachesis. In bullae, paranecium, which is that uh, inflamed fingers and toes. Hepatis and lachesis, phosphoric acid, silica, and diosmus. So that's why I say you have a handful of medicines. You have to choose which medicine will go for that paranecium the best. Head drawn to either side, camphor. When these epileptic attacks, whenever the head's drawn to either side, bufo and camphorous. And like I said, when they would overdose someone to get the symptoms they need, they antidoted by lachesis, Senegal, and what's complementary is salamandra. Hilo is that Hilo monster, the lizard. Salamandra is a salamander, which we make medicines out of, is amphisbena, which is amphibians, is complementary in epilepsy and brain softening. That's according to Herring. Okay, so that's Bufo, the poison toad. I love to do them at the end, and I know I'm a little over, but I like to do the comparison just to show you. We get a handful of medicines that are good for the same problem you're looking at. Now you have to do the differentials, which is what makes it better, what makes it worse. All these different symptomologies. What kind of food, do they desire? Sweet drinks, sour drinks. All these things help us to differentiate between one medicine and another to choose the right medicine for that person, because we're all individuals. We do not have, for a headache, I've got 100 medicines. So I have to narrow it down by getting, what's it feel like? What makes it better? What makes it worse? What do you desire to eat? All these kind of things help me to choose the medicine. So if I got 100 headache medicines, I got to narrow that down to at least a handful. And when I get a handful, I still got to narrow it down to the right one that works. And while you're doing it, you can try medicine, see what happens. If it doesn't work, it could palliate it, it could do a bunch of different things, but if it doesn't work, then you can go on to the next medicine. You will not harm a person if they're not susceptible to that medicine. It'll just do nothing. Or it can make them feel better, but once they quit taking it, it comes back. And if it does that, that was the wrong medicine. It just palliated. You got to try the next medicine. So that is morning medicine. You can age, but you don't have to get old. And what you eat and how you move will help you with all that aging.